Good morning. It's Tuesday the 21st of November here in London. This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Europe podcast. I'm Carlyle McDonald.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up today, a senior leader of Hamas says they're close to reaching a truce with Israel as hostage talks progress.
OpenAI talks of reunification. The CEO of Microsoft tells Bloomberg that wherever Sam Altman works, he works with them.
And as the Bank of England's Governor Andrew Bailey warns another interest rate hike may be needed, we look at how higher for longer rates are crushing global housing markets.
Let's start with a roundup of our top stories.
Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh says his group is close to reaching a truce agreement in talks with Qatar and Israel. The rare public comments suggest discussions about freeing some hostages held by the militant group are progressing. Families of some hostages abducted on the 7th of October have been speaking in London. One is Thomas Hand, whose young daughter Emily is believed to have been taken by Hamas. She turned 9 on Friday.
All this time, we knew her birthday was coming up, and of course we're praying to God that she would be released in time to have a birthday party, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So in that respect it was a very, very, very dark day.
Thomas Hand also urged Israel to show restraint.
It's totally just a humanitarian issue. It's nothing to do with politics. They're children, they're civilians. You can't act like that in a war. They've gone beyond the line.
Thomas Hand speaking there about his daughter and events in Gaza. Today's comments from Hamas come after Axios reported that the militant group's leader in the Gaza Strip has agreed in principle for more than 50 women and children to be released. It's understood that in exchange, Israel would release some Palestinians in Israeli jails and pause its military attacks for a specified time each day.
Now, in other news, according to a memo seen by Bloomberg, OpenAI is once again in active discussions to reunify the company and bring back its ousted CEO Sam Altman. The latest twist in the battle for control of one of the firms at the cutting edge of AI development comes after Altman agreed to run a new artificial intelligence group at Microsoft. Speaking to Bloomberg, the CEO of the tech giant Satya Nadella signalled that he'd be open to Sam Altman returning to OpenAI, but under one condition.
We really want to partner with OpenAI and we want to partner with Sam. And so irrespective of where Sam is, he's working with Microsoft. And that is the case on Friday, and that's the case today. And I absolutely believe that'll be the case tomorrow.
Satya Nadella's interview with Bloomberg came as nearly all of OpenAI's employees threatened to quit on Monday following Altman to Microsoft unless the current board resigned.
The Bank of England governor has warned that UK interest rates may need to go up again. Bloomberg's Tiwa Adebayo reports.
Andrew Bailey has warned that food price inflation and energy costs could spike again. Speaking to the National Farmers Union, he reiterated that it is too soon to be thinking about rate cuts. It's the strongest rebuttal yet of market bets that foresee 3 interest rate cuts in the UK next year. Bailey warned households to expect further volatility in food bills as climate change, protectionism and even conflict in the Middle East could affect energy costs and send grocery bills surging. In London, Tiwa Adebayo, Bloomberg Radio.
Meanwhile, Jeremy Hunt is setting out his vision for a lower tax pro-business economy with a £1 billion fund for startups. The Chancellor's early announcement comes after the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak suggested that tax cuts were coming in Wednesday's autumn statement.
What you will see on Wednesday, without going into individual measures, is a whole range of measures designed to unlock business investment and close that gap with countries like France, Germany and the United States.
Despite Hunt's words, the UK has been accused of failing to match its peers' commitment to spending on business. America's flagship Inflation Reduction Act dwarfs Britain's amount of spending.
The European Union is set to place France on its fiscal watch list. According to Bloomberg reporting, the country risks breaking guidance to limit deficit to 3% of GDP. A watch list of countries is scheduled for release by the European Commission today. Sources suggest Belgium, Finland and Croatia are mentioned, while Germany and France are also deemed not fully compliant. Inclusion on the list has no automatic consequences, but the Commission could pursue financial penalties if resistance continues.
And finally, Carlyle has received a supersized payout after selling its 28% stake in McDonald's China. With more, here's Bloomberg's Ewan Potts.
The world's biggest restaurant chain is stumping up about $1.8 billion to buy Carlyle's stake in McDonald's China. That delivers a return on investment for the private equity giant of more than 6.5 times. During Carlyle's 6 years of part ownership, the fast food chain ramped up store openings. There are now more than 5,500 in China and invested in delivery services. Selling the trophy asset ranks as one of Carlyle's most successful exits in China. In London, a slightly peckish Ewan Potts for Bloomberg Radio.
Those are your top stories on the markets. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index is 0.6% higher this morning. Eurostoxx 50 futures are up by 0.1%, and the 10-year Treasury yield 3 basis points lower at 4.39%.
OK, so in terms of our top stories this morning, I want to get some more detail on the Israel-Hamas war. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh is saying that the group is close to reaching a, quote, truce agreement with Israel as talks continue to secure the release of hostages who have been held in Gaza since the 7th of October attack. Joining us this morning is Bloomberg's Middle East breaking news editor, Dana Kraish. Good morning. Thank you for your time. What is the latest that we understand about the progress in these talks and what this particular deal may look like?
Good morning. We do seem to be closer to a deal that would see Israel and Hamas exchange hostages and prisoners. So Hamas members have been speaking this morning to Arabic media saying they're close to a deal and that they've submitted their own conditions for that. We had last night U.S. President Biden also saying that both were closing in on a deal. This is, of course, mediated by the U.S. and Qatar, which also said a few days ago that the talks were progressing. So we are getting somewhere, but of course, that all depends on developments. So the deal would probably entail Hamas releasing 50 women and children they've been holding hostage since that October 7 attack. And in return, Israel would agree to pauses in its military operations in Gaza for some days, and also release of some Palestinians in its jails. It's not a truce per se, but merely some pauses for a longer period of time. And that's, of course, different than what Israel had been doing, that was allowing Palestinians in Gaza to move to safer areas away from the fighting. So that's what we know so far on the details of the deal, or potential deal.
What could this open the door to something more akin to a ceasefire, something more long term of this, Dana? What are the hopes that this could perhaps open to perhaps a broader agreement?
I don't think there are high hopes for that. Israel has made it clear on several occasions that a ceasefire would merely allow Hamas to perhaps regroup or take advantage of it, get more weapons or anything of that sort. So they were very clear about being against a complete ceasefire. And the U.S. has backed that. And you see also Arab countries are in China today, Arab ministers are in China today to push for a solution to the crisis. And they are asking for a ceasefire, but that seems very far-fetched at the moment, especially that Israel said its, goal of this entire military operation is to wipe out Hamas. And that hasn't happened yet. They, have been working in the north of Gaza and all of that, but still that goal hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Dana, Bloomberg's Mark Champion, opinion columnist this morning, writes that Israel risks winning the battle and losing the war. The risks, what are the risks for Israel at this point?
I think it is the probably rising anti-Israel sentiment in the Middle East and putting at risk the deal and the progress that it has made with several Arab countries like the UAE and Bahrain. And of course, the deal that with Saudi Arabia that, would have probably gone through, if it wasn't for this conflict now. And that would have been, it's in its advantage, in Israel's advantage to, of course, set its place in the Middle East and, of course, boost trade ties. And for Saudi Arabia, it would mean, creating and expanding its clout in the region as well. So the risk is there, and, of course, alienating more probably people in the Middle East, and it's deals that it's been working on and the progress that these countries have made in the past couple of years.
Dana Crashaw, Middle East Breaking News Editor, thank you so much for joining us with the latest on that story.
OK, let's talk about some business news now, bringing you more of our interview with the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella. So obviously this is the story around OpenAI that we've been following so closely. He says that regardless of how events play out at OpenAI, Sam Altman will continue to work with the software giant. Plus, Nadella says that the artificial intelligence company needs governance changes. The Microsoft CEO has been speaking to Bloomberg's Emily Chang.
We really want to partner with OpenAI, and we want to partner with Sam. And so irrespective of where Sam is, he's working with Microsoft. And that is the case on Friday, and that's the case today. And I absolutely believe that'll be the case tomorrow.
To your knowledge, why was Sam fired? And was he involved in any wrongdoing? Has the board given you a reason?
As far as I'm concerned, as I said, we were very confident in Sam and his leadership team. I've not been told about anything. They published internally at OpenAI that the board has not talked about anything that Sam did other than some breakdown in communications. And, I've not directly was told by anyone from their board about any issues. And so therefore, I remain confident in Sam and his leadership and capability. And that's why, we want to welcome him to Microsoft.
Now, we understand that to support a return of Sam Altman to OpenAI, Microsoft wants some changes to the board, to governance, to its overall contract with OpenAI, so something like this never happens again. What specifically are you looking for? For example, would you want a board seat? And if not, what else?
Yeah, I think we definitely will want some governance changes so that, surprises are bad, and we just want to make sure that things are done in a way that will allow us to continue to partner well. That's about it, right? This idea that somehow, suddenly changes happen without being, in the loop is not good. And we will definitely ensure that some of the changes that are needed happen. And we continue to be able to go along on the partnership with OpenAI.
So how are you envisioning this role with the sort of, advanced AI team that Sam and Greg would be joining and leading? Can you explain that? And are they actually Microsoft employees right now? Who do they work for?
Yeah, so they're all in the process of joining. And yes, the thing is, look, we have a ton of AI expertise in this company. In fact, at our Ignite conference last week, we talked about all of the great work OpenAI is doing and on Azure and all the, models and tools that we built around it. And we also talked about all the open source models that are on Azure, from, Llama and Mistral and JS and everything, and then also, in fact, not only are we leaders in LLMs in partnership with OpenAI, but we're also leaders in SLMs, or the small language models, with Phi. And we talked about that, which is all developed by Microsoft Research. So what I'm excited about is sort of creating another team that's really going to have high ambition on leading edge advanced AI work that Sam and Greg are excited about. This is something that, we've talked a lot about with them. What happens in 25? What happens in 30? What do we do to advance both the system side, the science side? And that's the thing that we will be pushing on.
Now, many folks I'm speaking with don't see Sam as a sort of big tech company guy. He has all of these side projects that, we've already heard about. We've reported on new projects. Would he be able to pursue these side projects while being employed by Microsoft?
Yeah, I'm sure, Sam has got broad interests and broad investments and so on, and we'll definitely, work through the governance aspects of it. But most importantly, I think he would want to only work at Microsoft if he wants to spend his full-time time on really pursuing the mission, just like how he was spending his time on OpenAI. And so that's kind of the idea behind having him lead this advanced research team around AI with Greg and others, thing for us to look forward to.
Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO there, speaking to Bloomberg's Emily Chang.
To other news now. Housing markets around the world are facing a similar new reality. Sharply higher borrowing costs and a shortage of homes that's keeping prices elevated. Homeowners are under financial strain as they pay more for their mortgages, and those looking to get on the property ladder are finding it even less affordable than before. Today's Bloomberg Big Take story is looking at how this is playing out in countries around the world, and our personal finance editor Ainsley Thompson joins us now from Wellington in New Zealand for more. Ainsley, great to have you with us on the programme. This is a global look at property markets from the US to the UK to China to where you are. What similarities did you find among all of these various places?
Hello. I think the main similarity is that people with mortgages are increasingly stressed and have been caught out by the sheer speed of these interest rate rises. Also, I think the traditional pathway to building wealth, which has been the property market for most people, is now that option is being removed for a lot of people, whether it be first-time buyers or also people who want to build a property portfolio. It's just becoming increasingly difficult to do.
But New Zealand has been one of the most extreme cases. Why is that?
It goes back to 2020, 2021, when interest rates were incredibly low, like they were in many countries. And New Zealand experienced one of the biggest pandemic booms. And in 2021, prices rose 30% in that year alone. So many people who bought at that time had to borrow a lot of money just to get a house. And interest rates, as I said, were really low. So it gave us almost a false sense of financial security. And people were being stress tested by the banks on rates that are a lot lower than they are today. Since then, we've had 525 basis points worth of interest rate rises over just over a 2-year period. And that's putting a lot of stress on households. I think the one saving grace in New Zealand is the fact that employment is really strong, and wage growth has also been really strong. So while we are seeing stressed households, we aren't seeing distressed sales of properties on any sort of large scale.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The transmission of higher interest rates to higher mortgage costs for homeowners seems sort of the shortest jump in terms of effect. But talk to us about the effect on home building, because this is another aspect of the story as well. How is it affecting the actual number of homes being built and the housing shortage that's experienced in many places?
I think Canada is a really interesting example of this. In Canada, amateur investors make up a large part of the market. I think it's about a third of homeowners in 2020 were amateur investors, and they often buy pre-construction, so it feeds developers. It's a really important source of financing for developers who then go on to build, big complexes, etc., with houses that people who aren't investors are also buying. Now, that is stopping that construction happening, which means that there is a housing shortage, and that is keeping the prices high in Canada. And it's something that is being seen around Europe as well. I think Germany and France, the number of building permits is down a lot on past years.
I suppose. I mean, the other thing for that is, what does it mean globally, for the broader risks to the global economy from this kind of case study then?
What it means is that people are having to pay more for their housing, whether it be to own a house or through rent. And that means they've got less money to spend. So it's a handbrake on the global economy. It just, it's really driving that slowdown.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.